Hello. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Healthy Menu. I'm your host, Sonia Kudo. Today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, I will be hosting the Healthy Menu live for the Devour Food Festival. The festival is a transformative food and film experience combining cinematic excellence with extraordinary gastronomic activities. The annual week-long festival is the largest food film festival in the world, typically hosts about 100 plus events, celebrated filmmakers, and high profile chefs around the globe. The festival welcomes close to 15,000 food and film lovers to the Wolfville, Nova Scotia, Canada. The festival returns for its 12th edition, with their theme this year being one of the most buzzed about culinary topics of the present day, not only in the global culinary community, but in our very own kitchens. This year's theme is the future of food, centers around the increasing interest in plant-based nutrition and cuisine, sustainability, fishing, farming, and a look at food choices that continue to emerge throughout the world. Today, we are joined by Chef Doug McNish, who will be hosting a culinary workshop at the festival titled The Future of Food. Uh, Welcome, Doug. We are happy to have you here.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So, just a little bit about Doug. Doug is a globally recognized executive chef, consultant, and author, appearing on numerous national and international television shows. Doug has also won the Gourmand Award for Best Vegan Cookbook in the world 3 times. That's a big achievement there.
Yes, yeah. I know. I'm grateful for all of that for sure.
So, like I said, welcome. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background as you started out your career right here in Toronto?
Yeah, for sure. I started cooking when I was pretty young. I was 15, turning 16. I was still in high school, and I was actually in a Durham region in a place called Whitby, Ontario, and I started working in a restaurant called the Hunter's Horn, and it was a British pub. And it was my first foray into the restaurant world, and I loved it. I fell in love with everything food, and I guess the rest they say is history. I fell in love with everything food, and I got pretty good at it pretty quickly, and then from there I went to George Brown Chef School here in Toronto, and I just sort of progressed throughout the ranks. I took an apprenticeship, and I've worked all over, and I became self-employed about almost 12 years ago now. I became self-employed. So yeah, lots of interesting things have happened over that time.
Nice. So, why vegan cuisine? What made you want to get into that?
So I'm classically trained in French food. And I'm classically trained in every sense. I wasn't originally trained in vegan or vegetarian, and I wasn't originally vegan or vegetarian. When I was around 20 years old, 2021, I was pretty sick. And, I lived that sort of chef's lifestyle where you work a long day, you finish your shift, you drink cold beer, you go out, you drink more cold beer, you eat bad food, you wake up with a hangover, you start all over the next day. And I had ballooned, my weight had ballooned up to the highest it had ever been. And not only just the weight, I wasn't healthy.
Hmm.
I knew a change had to be made at that time. And I remember thinking a change had to be made, but I didn't know what it was. I fell in love with a woman, and I did not know at the time how much of an effect this romance would have on my life, but she was a vegan.
Okay.
She lived in New York City, and she started filling my head full of these ideas that animals have feelings, and food can be really healthy. And I think everyone hears the word vegetarian and they think healthy, and I certainly wanted to lose a bunch of weight and change my life around. And um, I'll never forget it. We went to Gramercy Tavern one night, which at that time was the number one restaurant in the world. We had a tasting menu, and she had the vegan tasting menu, and I had everything else. I had foie gras and veal, and And we went back to her apartment, and she's like, just watch this. Just watch this. And it was an undercover video of animals in slaughterhouses. It was PETA's Meet Your Meat.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I couldn't believe what I saw. And I decided to become a somewhat quasi-vegetarian. And then I guess, long story short, over the course of the next couple of years, I ditched all animal products. I lost about 100 pounds at that time. But more importantly than the number on the scale, I changed as a human being, and just everything. The way I looked at, white rice versus brown rice and lentils and things like that. So that's sort of how I got into that world.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, like, I was a vegan for 5 years, and I found I didn't do it for like animal rights or anything like that. I just did it because I just thought maybe it would be healthier way to, not consume as much meat. But I did it for 5 years, and it was really hard for me because I was what they consider a non-healthy vegan. So it came to a point where I wasn't eating any protein. My iron was really low. So I actually had to start eating meat again in order to be a little bit healthier. So, what's your journey been like to just understand food and learn food and really learn, what's healthy for you and what's not as a vegan? Because everyone makes that assumption that if you go vegan, you're just going to be healthier. But I don't think that's necessarily true. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, listen, back then there was no Beyond Meat. There was none of these things that exist now. So you were almost forced to. I'm talking, 16 years ago. There wasn't even almond milk in stores. It was just soy milk, and it tasted terrible.
Yeah.
So you were almost forced to eat lentils and brown rice and kale, which is what I did. And I made quinoa burgers and things like that. But to answer your question, no. The word vegan actually has nothing to do with health. Vegan is an ethical choice. So I agree that the word vegan sometimes gets mixed up with health. And no, certainly not. I mean, you could still eat a diet full of veggie burgers, French fries, potato chips, refined carbohydrates, lots of sugar, lots of oil. Calorie is a calorie. And so it really depends on what you're eating. And how much you're eating, and at what time you're eating, and you're fasting, and all these other things that are sort of current and trending today. I've been every type of vegan you can imagine. I've been food vegan. I was raw vegan for a year, many, many years ago. I was 95% raw.
That's intense.
It was intense, but there was a period of about 3 years of my life where I was running raw restaurants, and I had all the food in front of me all the time. And I just really wanted to see what it was like. And I'll be very honest, it was the best I've ever felt. It was the absolute best I ever felt. But, I would say I'm at a comfortable medium today in a sense that my wife, I live with my wife and son. I have a family. And my wife and I, we try and eat as less refined carbs as we can. Lots of sweet potato, lots of vegetables, tofu, tempeh, chickpeas, beans, things like that. And I think we're at a pretty good point right now. It doesn't mean we don't eat the odd Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger, but we don't do that because we want to be healthy. We want to do it because it's Saturday night and we're having a cold glass of wine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, years ago when I was vegan, I always described food as eating drywall because it was so bad. But I tried Beyond Meat. Like if I go somewhere and I see like a regular burger and Beyond Meat, I would actually prefer to choose the Beyond Meat. I actually think it's vegan food now, burgers, meat, it just tastes a lot better. So I think it's a lot easier to be vegan nowadays because the industry has also come a long way.
It's come leaps and bounds. I remember, like I said, 16 years ago, it was the only veggie burgers out there were Eve's veggie burgers, and they were terrible, but you ate them because that's all there was.
Yeah.
Now, you get. I mean, there are 3D printing steaks that you can serve medium rare now. Just an idea of where the market has gone and is going.
Yeah. So for my next question, you have worked with many food businesses, what can you say the most common challenge was that they faced, especially when dealing with plant-based menus?
The most common challenge that they face, I would say, I mean, oh gosh, that's a great question. I would say ingredient sourcing, believe it or not. It's still, you know, working with large suppliers here in North America, because I've done work in Europe and Australia as well, but we'll do an example here in North America is it's easy to get the stuff that's popular, the refined, the white flour, the white sugar, the canola oils, things like that. But when I start talking tempeh or organic tofu or even quinoa sometimes, brown rice flour, things like this, no one else is buying it, or very few are. So it's an extreme special order item. So just trying to get that into the supply chain is very challenging. And then once you do, there's not as much of a demand for it, so the prices are high. So a lot of people have this notion that vegan restaurants or vegan food businesses should be cheaper. And it's not actually true at all. A lot of these things that the traditional mainstream restaurants are using are subsidized. There's a high demand for them, so the costs are lower.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's probably one of the most, if not the most challenging things in all of this. I did a whole bunch of work in Stockholm, Sweden a few years ago. And in Sweden, it was the language barrier there. It was really interesting to try to order, brown rice flour there, things like that. But that was a lot of fun doing my thing over in Sweden.
So do you find that like in Europe, ingredients are just healthier in general? I keep hearing people who are like, oh, I went to Italy or I went to Portugal, I went to a European country and I ate way more than I normally would eat in North America and I actually lost weight. So did they just naturally have healthier ingredients?
I mean, I can speak for the Scandinavian countries. That's where I've spent the most time in Europe. And the answer is yes.
Okay.
It's not as controlled. What should I say? It's not as much of a monopoly as it is here. Big companies like Frito-Lay, Nestle, Cargill, they own the supply chain here. If it's not them, it's a subsidiary of them or something like that, and they own so much of it. And in Europe, in my experience, it's not. GMOs, for example, are not commonplace there. You don't have to ask about it. It's just not a thing. They still have the refined oils and the refined sugars, refined things like that. But 100%, it's just a completely different system. And because of the temperatures over there, a lot less things are made with corn products, which is really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, because corn here in North America is in almost everything. It's whether it's sugar or oil or starch, it's in almost everything. And over in Scandinavia, it just wasn't a thing. So it was interesting to learn that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. With the pandemic and big changes in the consumer behavior and technology, including ghost kitchens, third-party delivery, and multi-concept co-branding restaurants popping up everywhere. What is your take on these hybrid models? Do you think it's where the restaurant industry is headed?
The market will always dictate what is next, right? As much as you do or don't like something, it's sort of what happens is we as human beings, we latch onto something and it grows. Yes, I think that is where it's going to continue to go. During the pandemic, we obviously all started using the delivery apps more, almost all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just easier. And people are trained now. People know that they can order the same burger and fries or the same vegan French toast or whatever they're ordering. And it's delivered right to their door, and they're willing to pay $5 more for that. So
it's the convenience.
And people love convenience. Human beings are, and we're creatures of habit too. So we got into this habit of doing this over the last couple of years. And yes, I think it's just going to grow more and more. Do I like it? No. I got into the restaurant business. I got into the food business because I love people and I love talking to people, interaction. I love seeing them. It's the whole thing about hospitality. So do I love it? No. Is it here for now? Yes. I will say it is cool, as someone who's owned a restaurant to be able to run multiple menu items out of one kitchen. making people happy. You're still
Yeah.
giving them what they want. It's just in a different way.
Yeah. Did you find that people were, I mean, I know restaurants shut down during COVID, but did you find that people were ordering out more, or do you think they were cooking at home more?
They were ordering out a lot. um, I'm part of a chain here in Toronto called Aviva
Okay.
Restaurants. Yeah. And they were ordering a lot. People, I think at the beginning it was, oh, we're all home, let's cook. And then towards, the middle it was like, okay, I'm sick of cooking. I don't want to cook anymore. I just want this food. And, even my wife and I, we were ordering 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
A, I wanted to support the local businesses, but B, again, we got sick of cooking. So it just really stuck with people.
Yeah.
And I think it's just something that's going to grow more and more and more.
I remember my sister became like, we called her the baker. She just started baking bread at home and making homemade pizza. And I remember being at one point like, why? Just order it. But she really got into it. And then I think she got bored, just like most people did. But I did find a trend where a lot of people started baking at home. It was like a big thing.
Remember the sourdough? Everyone was doing their own sourdough. Oh gosh, there was all these stages of the pandemic, right? It was support workers, and first it was wash your grocery bags with Clorox. Anyway, we don't get into all that right now. It was an interesting couple of years.
Yeah, and how do you think it has changed the food service industry, the experience with COVID, and where we are now and where we're going?
Do you have an hour?
I mean, the restaurants really struggled, right? So are they going to change their business model so that they're prepared for the future?
I mean, I don't know if you can ever prepare for that. I'll tell you, they're still struggling. It is nice to go out and see restaurants more full, at least here in Toronto. But they're still struggling. A lot of people left the food service industry because of the uncertainty. So there is a huge labor shortage right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of some projects right now, and they just can't find cooks. They just can't find people who want to do it. And that's for various reasons. But, the cost of goods, the restaurant business is built on very razor thin margins, razor thin margins. And the cost of goods right now is just going through the roof worldwide. So it's still a very challenging time. I think that, we're speaking in the middle of October 2022. I think it's going to be another year. Things need to even out. Costs of goods have to come down. We're certainly going to, I think, heading into a recession. People are going to cut their eating out a little bit. So, I still think it's a very challenging time. And for anyone that's listening, I encourage you to go out and support your local restaurants, your local businesses as much as you can. And, just be there for them.
Yeah. I mean, everything's so expensive right now too, but even if you cook at home and you go to the grocery store, everything's more expensive, including ingredients. So which way do you go, right?
Everything is so expensive right now. Our vegan cheese brands that we buy are usually $4 or $5, and right now they're $7.50.
Oh, wow.
Our almond milk has always been $3.50, $4. It's now $6. And I could go across the board. I'm a very numbers oriented guy, and it's just wild right now to see what's going on, but everyone has to eat, right? So, I think that like a lot of people, they're still going to go out. My wife and I are once a week. We get takeout or we go out, and it's an interesting time. I believe everything for a reason. I'm a spiritual guy. I believe everything happens for a reason, and I think that the next phase of this is going to be a lot of growth. I think it's going to take a bit more time.
So what's your favorite vegan dish to make?
My favorite dish to make. Oh my gosh, you're asking. I've written.
You must have one.
My favorite dish to make. I make vegan eggs. I make vegan sunny side up eggs with a runny yolk.
Oh.
And it's something I've been working on for a long time. I think about 7 years now. And it's molecular gastronomy. There's a little bit of science behind it. So when, you blend this, you do this, but then when you sort of do the final process of it and everything comes together and people's eyes are like, what the heck what is that? when they dig in and they pop the vegan egg yolk and it runs on the plate, I think that's probably one of my most favorite moments. That what is that? And so I love
Yeah.
it.
I've never had vegan eggs. Does it taste like regular eggs, or is it a little off?
No, I would say it's. I mean, it's. I would say it's about 90 to 95% like the traditional thing.
Nice.
So it's really interesting. One thing I just want to point out, and I always try and say this to everyone, instead of saying the word regular, I always say traditional.
Okay.
Because then that doesn't make someone like myself feel, well, I'm not regular, and what they're eating is not regular.
Yeah.
That's something I started doing a long time ago. So traditional eggs from a chicken, I would say my eggs are like 90 to 95% close. Like they're really close to being there. So
That's nice.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to try it out.
Beaver restaurants. There's actually 4 locations in Ontario, in Canada, and soon to be 5 locations.
And where's your location in Toronto?
The location in Toronto is right across the street from Skydome.
Nice.
Right downtown.
Very nice. That's a good location to have.
Yes.
And do you find that people are embracing vegan food more and more and more than, like 5 years ago?
Yes.
To even see a vegan restaurant is a little, unordinary, but like how do you think, from now until 10 years, do you think the population is going to keep growing to go vegan?
I definitely think that it's not a trend. I definitely think it's here to stay, and things will continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. I think that, you're going to have more of the quote flexitarian market. I think that's one of the bigger segments that's going to grow. So, it's going to be challenging for everyone to give up meat. I don't know if that'll ever happen. But adding more and more into your diet, more plant-based into your diet, I think is certainly going to happen. And, kudos to Beyond Meat and Impossible and things like that, because it's like a bridging food, right? Like people aren't going to jump into only eating avocado and blueberries and lentils and brown rice and kale.
Right.
Have a Beyond Meat burger, that sort of segues them into having more of the other things that I just touched on.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about your culinary workshop at the Devour Film Festival. What's in store for those that are going to be joining?
So at Devour, in the workshop itself. So first of all, I am part of the dinner on the Friday night as well. So
Okay.
I'm doing the appetizer course for 150 people, and we are going to be So I've been working with a company called Small Food, and they're based out of Halifax. And what they have is an amazing microalgae, and it is really an ingredient that unlocks a ton of potential. That was always a big challenge in creating vegan seafood products. Not only is it a complete protein, it also has all of the AFAs that fish would have, and it has a really nice fishy flavor. So for the dinner and for the workshop, I'm going to be creating a microalgae style crab cake made with this wholesale protein from Small Food. And that's going to be served over a red lentil ragu with some local squash, some garlic greens, and a herbed aioli. And then that's for the dinner and the workshop. The dinner's on the Friday, and workshop is on the Sunday. And then for the workshop, I'm also going to be working on it's something I've been playing around with for sushi applications. So almost like a spicy tuna mix with in a nori roll. So I hope everyone tunes in. Comes down to Devour in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. I'm super excited for it, and it's the first time that Small Food and myself will be showcasing this and doing a tasting on a large scale.
Very nice. That sounds really exciting. So hopefully it'll be a success. It sounds yummy.
It's really good. One of the great things about Small Food is it's you get the taste of the fish, and you get the texture through the manipulation of the product and to create something. but you're getting all of your EFAs as well. And you know, something we touched on earlier in vegan or in plant-based, it doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy, but the great thing about small food is you're getting all of that. You're getting your complete protein. You're getting all your omegas, and it is a complete whole food. So it's really awesome, and it has a great texture, really fishy, lots of flavors going on. So I'm super excited for it.
That's exciting. What are your any future projects and cookbooks planned?
So I've written 4 cookbooks. I've written 4 cookbooks in, I guess it's been 9 or 10 years. So I feel old now. Um, you know, I kind of joke. I know this is a health podcast, but I kind of joke like writing a cookbook is almost like getting drunk. It's like you write it and you're like, I'm never writing another cookbook. I'm never drinking again. As of now, I don't have any plans to write another one, but I don't know what the future holds. Like I said, it's kind of like, well, I'm never doing this again. And then my book agent might say, hey, Doug, someone wants to do a vegan barbecue book or this or this or that. So I never say no to anything. At this time, I don't have any plans of writing another one. In a future projects, well, I'm moving to the United States, and we're moving soon. I think before the end of 2022, I will be living in the United States. So I'm actually not trying to take on too much right now.
Right.
It's a big transition. But this summer, I did help open. I consulted for a big, beautiful vegan restaurant and marketplace in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that was a year of work. I was down there for an entire month from July to August. And that's called the Edgy Veg. And it's operating and running, and things are going really well there. I'm part of Aviva Restaurants here in Canada, in Ontario, and I'm part of Neon Tiger Restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So for my last question, obviously, you know, for anyone who's trying to or considering going vegan, what would be your advice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, this is the answer I've given for the last 10 or 15 years. Treat it like you're dating it. You want to get to know it. You want to take it out. You want to get to know it. You want to hold hands with it, meaning the way you're eating, right? And the lifestyle. It's not something I think that anyone should really rush into necessarily. Take your time, get to know it, understand the flavors, the textures, the reasons, the whys, the environmental reasons, the ethical reasons, the health reasons. And then after a little bit of time and doing that and dating veganism, you sort of just like, oh, it clicks, and you ask it to marry it. And then you have this lifelong love affair with veganism, and you never go back.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the Healthy Menu podcast. Best of luck with the film festival and your what you're doing there. And you know, we'll stay in touch, and hopefully we'll do this again when you're in the US, and we'll see what you're up to.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Alrighty.